Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are taking a deep and honest look at how a war that began with speed, confidence, and bold expectations slowly turned into a grinding stalemate, and what Russia ultimately got wrong in Ukraine. When Russian forces crossed into Ukraine, the world watched with shock, but Moscow appeared confident that this would be a short campaign. The plan seemed simple on the surface. Apply overwhelming pressure, move quickly, break resistance, and force political collapse before the international community could respond in any meaningful way. This confidence did not come from nowhere. Russia had modernized parts of its military, invested heavily in missiles, and had recent experience in conflicts where quick intervention produced results. From Moscow's perspective, Ukraine looked vulnerable, divided, and unprepared for a sustained defense. But war rarely follows expectations. From the earliest days, cracks began to show. Russian columns stalled, logistics struggled, and Ukrainian resistance proved far stronger than anticipated. What was meant to be a decisive opening phase became the first sign that core assumptions were flawed. One of the biggest miscalculations was underestimating Ukrainian national identity. Russian planners appeared to believe that Ukraine was politically fragile and socially divided. They expected that resistance would be limited, and that parts of the population might even welcome Russian forces. Instead, the invasion strengthened Ukrainian unity. Civilians volunteered, local leaders organized defenses, and national morale surged. Rather than collapsing, Ukrainian society hardened. This unity became a force multiplier that no amount of hardware could easily overcome. Another major error was the assumption that Kiev could be taken quickly. The early push toward the capital aimed to decapitate leadership and force negotiations from a position of strength. But urban warfare, determined defenders, and logistical strain slowed progress. As Russian forces stretched supply lines, Ukrainian units exploited vulnerabilities. Ambushes, drone strikes, and targeted attacks turned speed into a liability. The failure to seize Kiev became symbolic, showing the world that Russia's plans were far from inevitable. Logistics became a silent but decisive battlefield. Modern wars depend not just on weapons, but on fuel, food, maintenance, and coordination. Russian forces struggled to sustain large-scale operations across multiple fronts simultaneously. Vehicles broke down, supplies ran short, and communication gaps appeared. These issues were not just technical failures. They reflected deeper structural problems in planning, training, and command integration that could not be fixed mid-war. Ukraine, by contrast, adapted quickly. Smaller, more flexible units focused on defending key terrain and disrupting enemy movement. This approach minimized weaknesses and maximized local knowledge, turning limited resources into effective resistance. Another critical misjudgment involved international reaction. Russian leadership seemed to expect political condemnation, but limited practical consequences. Instead, sanctions were swift, severe, and sustained. Economic pressure reshaped the battlefield indirectly but powerfully. At the same time, military assistance to Ukraine expanded far beyond initial expectations. Advanced weapons, intelligence sharing, and training support changed the balance. Ukraine's ability to strike accurately and defend effectively improved with each passing month. Russia also misread time itself. The assumption was that a short war would prevent long-term mobilization by Ukraine and its supporters. When that quick victory failed to materialize, Russia faced the opposite problem. A prolonged conflict favored Ukraine's adaptability and the collective resources of its allies. As the war dragged on, Russia's initial advantages diminished, while Ukraine's capabilities steadily grew. Command structure issues further complicated Russia's efforts. Centralized decision-making slowed responses on the ground. Field commanders often lacked autonomy, making it difficult to exploit opportunities or respond to sudden changes. In contrast, Ukrainian forces demonstrated initiative and flexibility. Lower-level commanders adapted tactics in real time, responding to battlefield conditions without waiting for distant approval. This agility became a defining advantage. The use of air power also revealed limitations. Despite having a larger air force, Russia failed to establish full air superiority. Ukrainian air defenses, dispersed and mobile, continued to pose a threat. This forced Russian aircraft to operate cautiously, reducing effectiveness. Without uncontested airspace, ground operations became more vulnerable, and coordination suffered. Information warfare played a crucial role as well. Ukraine controlled the narrative with transparency and consistent messaging. Videos, updates, and leadership presence maintained domestic morale and international support. Russia struggled to match this approach. Conflicting messages and restricted information created confusion both at home and abroad. In modern conflict, perception shapes reality more than ever. As the war evolved, Russia adjusted its goals. Large-scale maneuvers gave way to incremental advances. The focus shifted toward holding territory rather than rapidly expanding control. This transition marked the shift from invasion to stalemate. Front lines hardened, defenses deepened, and gains became costly. Each kilometer required time, resources, and heavy losses. The human cost of this shift cannot be ignored. Prolonged fighting exhausted units and strained recruitment. Maintaining morale became increasingly difficult as expectations collided with reality. Ukraine faced its own immense challenges, but its defensive posture and clear strategic objective provided focus. Defending one's homeland carries a psychological strength that invading forces struggle to match. Technology further leveled the field. Drones, precision weapons, and real-time intelligence reduced the advantage of massed formations. Smaller forces could now inflict disproportionate damage. Russia's traditional emphasis on large-scale firepower proved less effective in this environment. Precision, coordination, and adaptability mattered more than sheer volume. Economic pressure continued to reshape the conflict. Sanctions limited access to advanced components, affecting maintenance and production. Over time, this eroded the sustainability of high-intensity operations. Meanwhile, Ukraine's integration with Western systems accelerated. Training improved, coordination deepened, and long-term planning became possible even amid ongoing fighting. Diplomatically, Russia found itself increasingly isolated. While not entirely alone, its room for maneuver narrowed. Ukraine, on the other hand, built broad coalitions that extended support beyond immediate military needs. As months turned into years, the concept of victory changed. Instead of decisive breakthroughs, success became measured in endurance. Holding ground, preserving forces, and shaping future leverage took priority. This is the essence of stalemate. Neither side collapses, but neither achieves decisive victory. In such conditions, the initial mistakes become magnified because they shape the structure of the conflict. Russia's early miscalculations locked it into a war that demanded resources and flexibility beyond what was planned. Adjusting strategy mid-conflict proved far harder than expected. Ukraine's success did not come from overwhelming power, but from resilience, adaptation, and effective partnerships. These qualities transformed vulnerability into strength. the lesson here is not just about military hardware or troop numbers. It is about understanding people, politics, and the limits of force. Wars are won as much in planning as they are on the battlefield. From invasion to stalemate, the story of this conflict is one of assumptions colliding with reality. It shows how confidence can become a weakness when it blinds leaders to complexity. As the war continues, its final outcome remains uncertain. But one thing is clear. The path from rapid invasion to prolonged stalemate was shaped by choices, misjudgments, and an underestimation of resistance. Understanding what went wrong is essential, not just for historians, but for anyone trying to understand modern warfare. The conflict in Ukraine is not only about territory, but about how wars are fought in the 21st century. Thank you for watching, and if you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to stay connected with the channel for more deep analysis and clear explanations of the stories shaping our world.